and goblins as we discuss the 10 best horror franchises of all time this week. I'm Zach Miller. The man to my left, right, is Martin Cooke. But before we get into the spooky stuff, we have the box office report for this week, and my lighting guy is he called out sick, so I'll be right back.
All right, yeah. So as Zach said, we're going to talk about horror movie franchises, and so that's why it's very appropriate that the number one movie at the box office this week is a horror movie, which makes sense coming up to Halloween, which is why we're doing this podcast. And that was Black Phone 2, which brought in 27.3 million for the weekend. Uh, it's now at 49 million worldwide on a $30 million budget. So for a first weekend, seems like it's, like most horror movies do, it's going to make some money. Coming in second place, a movie that is definitely not making money, that's Tron Ares with another 11.1 million. 106 million worldwide, but as we've mentioned last week, that is just not going to cut it against they're probably down 200 million at this point. Coming in third place, another new entry is a Good Fortune, which made 6.1 million for the weekend, 9 million worldwide. It's an Aziz Ansari, Keanu Reeves, Seth Rogen comedy type thing. I actually saw it this weekend. It was all right,
Hmm.
but it also had a 30 million budget. So compare that to Black Phone 2, and yeah, it's not doing so well. Fourth place, One Battle After Another, keeps battling, another 3.8 million, up to 100, over 167 million right now. And fifth place, what are the new ones from last week? Roofman or Roofman? No, I guess it's Roofman. 3.7 million weekend for 21 million overall.
Yep, we only have three wide releases this weekend. One is Regretting You from Paramount Pictures. Then we have the rock biopic Springsteen Deliver Me from Nowhere, which I literally just sat down after going to see and don't see it. It's awful. Even if I think especially if you're a diehard Springsteen fan, which I'm not, but a lot of my family is, then yeah, everybody hated it. So
That's so disappointing.
yeah. And then we have Stitchhead from Briarcliff Entertainment, to PG movie, and so yep, that's it for the wide releases for the week.
There's also a new one coming to Netflix that was released in a few theaters. I actually saw it as well at the TIFF Theater called House of Dynamite, House Made of
Mm,
Dynamite, something like that. It's a new Catherine Bigelow movie. And it's just sort of a tense thriller as she tends to make.
mm. Yeah, I'm always there for a Catherine Bigelow movie. I hadn't heard
Yeah.
anything about that, so yeah, good spotting
Yeah,
that one.
I quite liked it actually.
Good. Yeah, so we wanted to, it's Halloween season. We want to do Halloween special. We're gonna do 2 weeks of those, but where to start when it comes to the genre of horror, especially since neither of us are exactly aficionados. I think just overall, I've probably seen more horror over my time than you have, but it's still worth covering. They're still wildly entertaining in some cases, even if they're some of the stupidest plots or premises that you've ever seen.
Yeah.
So, just let's have some fun and talk some horror.
Yeah, so we're gonna divide it up basically. So this week we're gonna talk about horror franchises, and then next week we're gonna talk about individually great horror movies. And so we're gonna talk about 10, as we always do. We always talk about 10 franchises that are kind of the most iconic franchise horror franchises of all time. So before we get into them, though, here's a few that we considered but aren't gonna talk about. So Paranormal Activity franchise, which is a Blumhouse franchise with 7 films. Insidious, which is also Blumhouse. It feels a little weird that we don't have a Blumhouse franchise on this list, but that we just couldn't take any of the others off. It's got 5 films. Jeepers Creepers, which has 4 films. Child's Play, which was a United Artists Universal one. It's got 8 films and a TV series. And then we also didn't consider, well, we considered, but we ruled out the Alien franchise because we thought a lot of it's more sci-fi than it is horror, aside from the first film, and the Predator franchise, which is kind of more action. So those were ones we thought about, but we're not going to talk about just in case you're sitting there going, "Where the hell are these ones?"
Yeah, and the quality of all these varies tremendously, but we'll get into that as we go. So
Yeah. So let's start off. We're going to do these in chronological order this time. And so let's start off in 1968 with Night of the Living Dead. So this is a George Romero film. It was partly based on Richard Matheson's 1954 novel I Am Legend, which of course later got turned into a Will Smith movie. But this is so, the idea of ghouls or zombies had definitely been around before, but this is really the movie, the OG zombie flick. This is the one that really popularized it as a genre. Um, this is going to be a very familiar refrain for a lot of these movies. It made a shit ton of money. It was
mm.
made for about $100,000 and made over $30 million, which makes it still to this day one of the most profitable films of all time, the original. So because of that, of course, it gets turned into a franchise. Now the franchise is a bit complicated. There are six official George S. Romero of the Dead movies. That's Dawn of the Dead, Day of the Dead, Land of the Dead, Diary of the Dead, and Survival of the Dead. But there's also a whole bunch of other like spin-offs and remakes. Um, One of the remakes was 2004's Dawn of the Dead, which I actually went and rewatched part of it again. And I had totally forgotten, but it's just a fascinating group of people involved in it. So it was directed by Zack Snyder, written by James Gunn, and starring Sarah Polley, who's also a director in her own right. But just the fact that it was Zack Snyder and James Gunn on the same project is pretty funny. But all that to say, anyway, this is the quintessential zombie franchise, and so had to be included.
Yeah, and this one, like we're mostly gonna be talking about the originals because we're going in chronological order of when the first installment of the series came out or the
Mm.
franchise. But yeah, I went back and rewatched this, and yeah, it's 1968. Stars a black main character in a black and white movie, which is very hard to find.
Yeah,
And
very progressive for 1968.
yeah, absolutely. And especially since the underlying theme of the film is basically racism and seeing people that are different from you as the other. And this takes it to a very extreme conclusion. It's got, you got zombies eating people's brains and stuff like that. But yeah, it definitely still holds up. It's still creepy because it has that old feeling, and I think a lot of the quote unquote like cheaper, the lower budget horror movies are a lot better than the high budget ones because they have that just kind of unsettling feel to them.
Yeah.
And when you have a movie that's a lot more polished, then it comes off as just not as creepy or scary.
Yeah, it's too slick and not and not creepy enough. You're right. One final just funny note that I discovered as I was looking into this, that Romero and his like little production team, like this was an independent film, and but his little production group, they had one of the things that they had just worked on was the neighborhood. It's a Wonderful Day in the Neighborhood, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood.
Oh, A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood. Yeah, yeah.
Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. So I just thought that was funny that they go from working on production of some episodes of that to Night of the Living Dead.
Hey, you get the giz you can get.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, overall, I've only seen a handful of the official ones that have
Yeah.
come out, and I think the quality definitely declines because they just become run-of-the-mill zombie movies, which is fine if you're just into some Halloween fare. But at least Night of the Living Dead, the original, had something to say, and yeah, just real quick, yeah, the Dawn of the Dead remake was actually one of the better remakes out there as far as horror movies go, and
It
it,
actually
it
was. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
Very entertaining.
Yeah, before Zack Snyder kind of got all full of himself.
Yeah. Then we have Halloween, which is, one of the original slashers. Texas Chainsaw came out a couple years before it, but Halloween now obviously has the staying power. Texas Chainsaw, which we are not going to talk at length about at all, it has, numerous sequels, remakes, but none of them recapture the magic of the first one because again, they become too polished. But Halloween has its good installations, has its really bad installations, but Michael Myers is a household name, and not just talking about Austin Powers. But yeah, Jamie Lee Curtis became basically the original Scream Queen, and she has been able to parlay that into the amazing career that she's had over the past almost 60 years now, 50. I will say that Halloween 3 Season of the Witch is one of the worst movies I've ever seen in my life.
I don't think I've ever seen that one, so I will avoid it then.
There is no Michael Myers in it. It's a complete standalone sequel that is just about haunted masks killing kids in the same town in Illinois. But yeah, very annoying song that keeps repeating over and over and over, and it's an earworm, and it's yeah, very very bad movie. But if everyone with Michael Myers in it is at least mildly entertaining, even if you go all the way up to what was it, Halloween? Not H2O, but Halloween. I think it was Halloween Resurrection with Tyra Banks and Busta Rhymes in it, and that one is like endlessly quotable because Busta Rhymes trying to act scared is just one of my all-time favorite movie going experience because I was like 14 or 15 seeing it with a bunch of my boys but yeah, one of my favorite all-time horror quotes is Busta Rhymes puts his hand over the protagonist's mouth and she's like, "Everybody dead. We got to get the fuck out of here." He delivers it totally deadpan. Great, great stuff.
Yeah, we actually talked about the original back on our Century series. So if anybody wants to find that on Spotify, you can go and check that out when we were talking about most important movies of the 70s. And yeah, it's just this is an undeniable influence on almost every horror movie that came afterwards, including the very next one that we're going to talk about, and that's Friday the 13th, which came out in 1980. And this one, the original, was directed by Sean Cunningham, who was, admitted freely, he was directly inspired by Halloween and by the success of Halloween to make a horror film. And this one was a Paramount film. They got Paramount on board. And like a lot of others, this was a massive success relative to the budget. The original estimated $600,000 budget probably, but made about 60 million. So again, just incredible return on investment. And this movie introduced a lot of the horror tropes that we're familiar with today. Like a lot of them obviously were introduced in Halloween as well, but like the camp, the teenagers having sex before their downfall, like all that kind of stuff comes out of Friday the 13th. Something interesting about the original, though, not any of the sequels, but the original, is that the killer is actually a woman. A lot of people think that Jason is the villain from the beginning, but in the original, the killer is actually Jason's mom. Um, but then, she gets her head chopped off in the end. Oops, sorry, spoiler alert for a 1980 movie. At the
Damn
end
it,
of the
Martin.
first one, and then Jason, who's already dead, wants to get revenge for that. So
Makes
then,
perfect sense.
yeah, of course, they had to find a way to keep the franchise going, and obviously this turned into a massive franchise. Parts two and three came out right away to try to capitalize. So in 1981 and 1982. There were 8 movies in total in the 80s of Friday the 13th movies. Like it was just everywhere. There was one in the 90s. There was a totally fucking lunatic one in 2002 called Jason X, the 10th movie, where he goes into space in the
Yes.
future and starts
Yes.
killing people on a spaceship, like just so as far away from the original as you could possibly get. And then there was a crossover movie with Jason and a villain that we'll see in a little bit called Freddy and Jason, Freddy versus Jason, sorry. Um, and then there was a reboot in 2009 that didn't really spark anymore, despite, it did relatively well at the box office. It's not like it was a flop or anything, but they just kind of, it just didn't garner much interest. It also spawned a TV series in the 90s or sorry, in the late 80s. And there's an upcoming TV series actually called Crystal Lake, which
Mm.
is being produced by A24 and is set to premiere on Peacock in 2026, where I think it's Linda Cardellini is going to take on the role of Mrs. Voorhees. So that should be maybe kind of interesting. In total, the all the films in this franchise have grossed over $468 million. So yeah, pretty big franchise.
Yeah, an A24 developed Friday the 13th series is definitely at least worth checking out.
For sure, for sure.
Yeah.
And I've always liked Linda Cardellini.
Oh
She's
yeah.
ever since Freaks and Geeks. So
Mm.
yeah, it should be good.
Yeah, and yeah, Jason, right up there with Michael Myers is one of the most iconic slasher villains ever, and
Yeah.
yeah, it is always fascinating trivia fact that he wasn't even in the first one. Well, he was in the very final scene, but
Yeah.
for all intents and purposes, no. But yeah, Friday the 13th. Yeah, Jason X, you already covered.
Just bonkers
Yeah.
decision to take the franchise that direction.
But yeah, he does everything from Jason Takes Manhattan and
That's true.
uh
I guess it just kind of they have taken Jason pretty much everywhere. So they thought, okay, why not space?
yeah. Yeah, the hockey mask, iconic
Yeah.
Halloween costume for another 30 years or so. Chainsaw, the whole shebang is just so iconic, especially in the realm of horror. And it's funny. I was gonna save this for later, but yeah, the Jason, his mom being the villain in the first one actually comes up in one of our later franchises. So, but next up we have
It does.
the Evil Dead horror franchise. Obviously these are all horror, sorry. But it's developed, written, the whole thing by Sam Raimi. Almost, I think, yeah, Bruce Campbell's in all of them. And we know, if you're a fan of Sam Raimi and his films, Bruce Campbell pops up in everything from Evil Dead to Spider-Man
Yeah.
and everything in between. And this one is really just a straight up B movie franchise, and it's kind of self-aware in that respect. It's about a bunch of just a ragtag group of people that find this book called the Necronomicon, which is a brilliant name for like a mythical book. It basically illustrates what the entire series is going to be about, because they just fight demons, and they're not necessarily, a lot of them are zombies, but there's all kinds of different demonic creatures that pop out of the Necronomicon as they read different passages from it. And so yeah, the first one came out in 1981. There have been seven main films, and then there was Ash versus the Evil Dead that came out in 2015. So it definitely has legs. And there's another one coming out in 2026 called
Oh, is there?
yeah, it's called The Evil Dead Burn.
Okay.
So yeah, so we have the Evil Dead, Evil Dead 2, Army of Darkness, which was remade. Was that a Zack Snyder? Anyway, Evil
Oh,
Dead Rise, and then yeah, coming up, Evil Dead Burn. And there's even Evil Dead the musical. So yeah, this one.
that's right. That's right. There is.
But yeah, it's pure camp, not to be
Yeah.
taken seriously at all. It's gore and just a very fun time.
Yeah, as you say, it was always very self-aware about being kind of a B movie franchise. But by the time you get to Army of Darkness, it's pretty much straight comedy.
Mm.
Like I fucking Army of Darkness was one of my favorite movies when it first started. I love Army of Darkness so much. Just Bruce Campbell with his his witty one-liners and as his hacking people to bits and stuff. Just well, not people, but it's yeah, the Evil Dead franchise is absolutely iconic, belongs on this list. And yeah, provides a bit of levity in amongst some of these other ones.
Yeah, and we already told you which ones we didn't do, but we wanted to kind of do a variety of movies, so we didn't want to go too zombie heavy, too slasher heavy,
Yeah.
et cetera, et cetera. So we're hoping this is like more of an eclectic overall list than just a straight ahead, like this is the one that made the most money and stuff like that. So
Yeah. Next up, but yeah, but we also wanted to talk about ones that are uh like iconic. I think that's what that's what this is going to be titled, and sort of the ones that have the most cultural resonance. And the next one on our list is another one with just an absolutely incredible villain, and that is A Nightmare on Elm Street. And so the first movie of this started was in 1984. This was written and directed by one of the undisputed masters of horror, and that's Wes Craven, who will show up again later. So Craven had done a bunch of horror type films before this. He did Last House on the Left in 1972, The Hills Have Eyes in 1977, both of which had remakes later on, Swamp Thing in 1982. But in this one, he really wanted to dive into the supernatural and kind of the blurred lines between dreams and reality. And this was apparently inspired by newspaper articles he had read of people fleeing the war in Vietnam, Vietnamese, and like refusing to sleep because the nightmares they were having were so horrible.
oh.
And that just kind of sparked this idea for him. Um, and as I said, yeah, one of the most incredible horror villains of all time, Freddy Kreuger, who comes and gets you in your dreams. It really actually did make, kids in the 80s terrified to go to sleep for a while.
1, 2, Freddy's coming for you. I mean, yeah, that is just inherently creepy. I hate little girls in horror movies. That actually does creep me out.
Yeah, yeah. This was also one of the very first really successful films for New Line Cinema, which we'll see again because New Line ended up making a bunch of horror movies and horror franchises, but so much so in the 80s that New Line sort of became to be known as like the house that Freddy built
Mm.
because it was kind of the movie that really got them on their feet. It was originally made for approximately 1.1 million and made around 57 million. So again, another incredible return on investment. The franchise, there are 9 films in total, which is ridiculous. So with 8 sequels or remakes, that includes the one I mentioned earlier, Freddy versus Jason, obviously the crossover with the Friday the 13th franchise. And these films collectively, oh, it also had a TV series as well in the late 80s called Freddy's Nightmares that lasted for 2 seasons.
Hmm.
The films themselves have grossed about $472 million. So actually, it's very similar to the Friday the 13th franchise.
Yeah, such a interesting take on the slasher genre, which had already been kind of almost played out, even though the genre as a mainstream vehicle was only about 8 years old at that time. But I mean,
Yeah,
we already
but
had
there
a
were a
couple.
lot in the 80s. Yeah.
Yeah, already had a couple Halloweens, already had a couple of Texas Chainsaws, already had a couple Friday the 13th. So
Yeah.
for Craven to come in and find a new way that I mean, and at its core, yeah, it is a really creepy concept that if you fall asleep, you're gonna die.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Yeah,
think the tagline is something like, yeah, if you don't wake up screaming, you won't wake up at all, or something like that.
yeah,
Yeah.
very well done. Yeah.
Yeah.
And of course, basically introduced Johnny Depp to the film going world.
That's right. The first one was his very first movie
Yeah,
role.
he
Yeah.
had done 21 Jump Street beforehand, but yeah, his and his death scene. Sorry, spoiler. Again one of the most iconic in film history, where he's just chilling in bed, listening to his gigantic headphones and stereo, and with his cut off at the belly jersey, because he's a jock, and that's how they wore him in the 80s. Very manly, very
Oh
masculine.
yeah.
But yeah, then he gets just sucked down into the bed, and nothing, just a river of blood spurts out from the bed. Yeah, just mm, chef's kiss as far as as far as serial killer death scenes go in
Yeah, nice
movies.
work, Wes Craven.
Yes. And I'm very remiss. I didn't have a chance to take too many notes, but I failed to even mention that John Carpenter was the architect behind Halloween. So I
Right, right.
apologies for
Yes.
that.
Yeah.
But so with that, I think it's time for a drink, because I'm getting so scared.
Okay. Oh, we're doing drink one movie early then. Are we? One, two, three, four. Anyway, um, we often do them right in the middle. So what are we doing for a drink today, Zach?
Okay, tonight we're doing the Headless Horseman. I picked this up in a pamphlet from the local liquor store, and gave Martin a choice of eight, and this is the one he came up with. And I pretty much always have vodka on hand, and I happen to have ginger ale because I've been sick this week. So the perfect. I've
Oh,
been
so it's the perfect drink then for you. Yeah, a little
yeah,
ginger ale.
yeah. It kills all the bad stuff inside you.
Yeah.
So for the drink though, you're gonna need vodka, ginger ale, bitters, and an orange slice. So doing an ounce and a half of vodka, rolling with Svedka as I usually do.
Oh, got some
Martin's got the
Smirnoff.
Smirnoff, of course. I got Canada Dry.
So do I. Yeah.
So it's a ounce and a half of vodka, 5 ounces of ginger ale, three dashes of bitters, and just the orange slice to garnish. And of course, the Headless Horseman was the product of Washington Irving's Legends of Sleepy Hollow.
Which did eventually get made into a Tim Burton movie and has been in
Yeah,
actually a whole bunch of different kinds of things.
but
But
the Disney animated cartoon was much more faithful to the source material.
yeah. Yeah.
All right, so that's about what it looks like at the end product.
I'm still working on mine here. I don't know why I'm so slow this time. Bitters spilled out pretty fast. So
Were you able to get your hands on some fresh fruit this time?
I did. Yeah.
Oh, okay, okay.
Because it's ginger ale. I'm not using the shaker, so I'm just going to use a thing and stir it up, mix it up that way. Yep, I've got my orange slice here. Put that in there.
All
There it
right.
is. Headless Horseman. Here we go.
Yeah.
Yeah, you really, the bitters, it is good because you don't want it. I sometimes find things if you add bitters to drinks that have a whole bunch of other ingredients, the bitters kind of get drowned out. Um, but this, it really changes the flavor of it. I like
Yeah,
it.
it's yeah, very simple.
Yep.
You know, vodka ginger ale is just a really refreshing cocktail, but yeah, adding the bitters and then the orange slice, yeah, it changes it up a lot more than you might think.
Yeah. All right. I
All right,
did actually bring a cloth this time.
nice.
Clean up my
So
workstation.
we are skipping ahead about a decade and a half now, because Nightmare on Elm Street was early 80s, and we're going straight to 1996's Scream. And this one is another one by Wes Craven, but it's it's very inventive,
Hmm.
because it's very self-referential as far as the genre goes. Um, they especially the Jamie Kennedy character acknowledges constantly the existence of previous horror movies. Like they're even like at a party that they're watching Halloween, and he goes out of his way to explain the rules of slasher movies, like don't have sex, don't do drugs, don't say "I'll be right back," all that, all that kind of stuff, and even the very opening scene is one of the most iconic in
Yeah.
horror history because Drew Barrymore was first on the call sheet, and she
Well,
she
and
was
definitely the biggest star out of anybody in this movie by that.
yeah, yeah, she was a major star at the time, and she gets killed after the first 7 minutes or so, and that must have just blown everybody's mind. Like I didn't see it in theaters, so I didn't get to experience the initial reaction, but yeah, and what again, one of the questions that so the killer calls up, oh my God, it's coming from inside the house, all that kind of shit, and he's he's giving her trivia questions, and the killer asks Drew Barrymore who was the killer in Friday the 13th, and she says, "Oh, okay, Jason." And this is to like save her boyfriend's life, who's trussed up outside on the patio. And he's like, "Nope, wrong answer. It's actually Mrs. Voorhees, which we just discussed." And
Yeah.
so it's very, very layered and a lot of comedy in it. I forgot I forgot that Henry Winkler played the principal in this, and
And
I
he
actually
gets slaughtered.
yeah, I I haven't seen either of these in a while, so I thought that Henry Winkler played the principal in the parody of Scream, which was Scary Movie, but no, he was actually in the more serious version, and I was like, oh wait, yeah, just got my wires crossed there.
Yeah.
So, but okay, so Scream wound up just making a huge franchise. Scream 7 is coming out in 2026. So we're having quite a few of these coming all the way back around for next year. So it's actually kind of relevant. And again, there was another TV. I had no idea there were this many TV series made out of these movies. There was a Scream from 2015 to 2019.
Really?
Yeah, I didn't know it ran 4 seasons, but
I
yeah,
had no
wow.
idea there even was a series for this. Okay.
Yeah. Nev Campbell was in most of them. Jenna Ortega, who's like the scream queen of our time today, has kind of taken over the mantle from her. But David Arquette, Courtney Cox, and fun cast. I wouldn't say like a all-star great cast, but just a lot of big names and
Yeah.
very consistent too the entire series. There's not one that's like just a total dud. There's some that are better than others, but for the most part, yeah, very uh, probably top to bottom, maybe the best overall franchise just in quality.
Right, in terms of consistency, yeah.
Mm,
The I mean, you mentioned this was Wes Craven. It was Wes Craven directed, but this was written by Kevin Williamson, who of
mm.
course would also write I Know What You Did Last Summer and those kind of franchises. It rewatching this, and then I also jumped ahead and rewatched Scream 2, and the cast in Scream 2, it was stocked. Like they just stocked these casts with all the sort of the hottest young acting people around. So,
Acting
Scream.
people.
Well, yeah, like yeah, the hottest young. Like I mean,
I got you.
not even hottest in terms of like the looks, but just like the most up and coming. So, the second one also had Sarah Michelle Gellar, and the same year she did like Buffy um and I Know What You Did Last Summer. Like that's what a great year for her in 1990, whatever that was, 8. And Jerry O'Connell and just all these other people. It was pretty incredible cast. One thing that I had totally forgotten about rewatching both these first two is how prominent the song Red Right Hand by Nick Cave is. Which, of course, for anybody who doesn't know, is also that I'm now associated with. It's the Peaky Blinders theme song, and so just you keep hearing it throughout the movie, and I'm just like, oh man, it's Peaky Blinders. That totally messed me up because it is really prominent in both the original and in Scream 2.
I'm so glad you brought that up because I played it all the way through, and I went to take a bathroom break because I didn't need to sit there scene by scene. And
Mhm.
but then I went to the bathroom. All of a sudden I heard Red Right Hand, and I was like, "How did Peaky Blinders come on when nobody hit the remote?" And so yeah, yeah, you and I obviously totally associate that song because it is the theme song of Peaky Blinders,
Yeah.
one of our favorite shows of all time. So yeah,
You,
that's
you thought some
fantastic.
poltergeist was messing with your remote, did you?
Well, if he did, he picked a good choice.
Yeah, yeah. Some sort of ghost with taste.
Uh,
All right. Next up, we've got Final Destination. The first one of these movies came in the year 2000. In the year 2000. Um, it was, it's a supernatural horror one where, so the first film was directed by James Wong. It was his directorial debut from a script written by him, Glenn Morgan, and Jeffrey Reddick. So the plot is basically the same in all these movies. Someone has a premonition of something terrible about to happen, causing them to cheat death, and then death has to try to find ways to kill them anyways. So yeah, the villain in all these movies is just death itself, which is very interesting because you never see the villain. You never see, yeah, I mean, I guess in that way it might be similar to something like, well, like the word I said earlier, like Poltergeist, where you don't actually see a villain, but it's it's kind of unique in that way. This was also a New Line cinema production. They distributed this. The first one made 113 million on a 23 million dollar budget. So of course, what does that mean? Franchise. So it has spawned five sequels. So for six films in total, as well actually as a bunch of novels and comic books. Interestingly enough.
no TV
And
series for this one though.
no, no, I don't think so. It's
Not
surprising because you'd
yeah.
think this one could kind of go with a TV series, but I guess coming up with all those like Rube Goldberg death machines takes time, and that might be a bit complicated. It worldwide, the franchise has grossed over $983 million dollars on total budgets of around 200 million. So definitely, a successful franchise. Final Destination Bloodlines from May was a sleeper hit this spring, so the franchise is still going pretty strong. I totally enjoyed Final Destination Bloodlines. I saw it in the theater, and the theater was just going crazy and laughing and loving all the different kind of crazy death scenes. So yeah, it's not one that again takes itself seriously. It kind of in terms of tone would be more in the Evil Dead type thing in terms of, it knows that it's ridiculous, but just really leans into it and is a lot of fun and just has this one killer premise that they just keep going back to, but it still works. So great franchise.
A killer premise. Yeah, I've been a huge fan of this franchise since its opening, and I do think it's an interesting kind of a thought experiment in
Mhm.
just the way that kind of is fate inevitable, or can you escape it? And that goes to like metaphysics and religion and all these different kinds of things. And so if you really want to overthink it, it can kind of fuck your brain up.
Yeah.
But
Luckily, the makers of these films don't really overthink
no.
it.
Yeah, I always thought it was a very interesting premise for a lot of the reasons that you just stated, and that we don't see the quote unquote like the killer because it could be a garbage disposal or
Right.
a plane crasher, and so many creative deaths throughout the franchise. I every time I'm behind a logging truck in a car,
Oh,
I
yeah.
always avoid it. It's always in the back of my mind because I'm pretty I'm almost certain it's in the second one where there's a logging truck and all the logs fall off and just
You're
bust
right.
through
I
the.
always think it's in the first one, but I think you're right. I think it is the second one. Yeah.
I watched the first one, so it's definitely not
Oh,
that one.
okay.
So
Okay.
but so yeah, so there's a logging truck in front of this person just driving, on the highway, and the logging truck disassembles. The log comes through and just busts through this girl's face, and it's funny too for the prominence and the staying power of that particular scene because anytime I talk to somebody about a logging truck, they're like, "Oh God, I never get behind those." And if I do, I swerve around as fast as I can. And I'll see memes on Facebook and Instagram about logging trucks and avoiding them to this day. And
Yeah.
even the second one came out in '03, so that's still 20 plus years ago, and that's stuck in people's minds. So yeah, I think that one and the garbage disposal one, because I will never reach into a garbage disposal unless I know the breaker is down. It's
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
not worth it. It's
No,
not
no,
worth
it's really
it.
not worth it.
It's not worth the risk. So
To get a
it,
spoon or something. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, it's not worth the. I mean, it's a valuable life lesson as well. But yeah, I haven't gotten a chance to see Bloodlines, but everybody I talk to, even those who aren't huge horror fans, including yourself, obviously, has had praise for it. So, and then we have a bit of a different twist on horror, and that is Saw. And this was really the intro of the body horror um, genre, subgenre, I guess. And we've seen a lot of just really sick gore in the '70s and '80s with all the B movies, but nothing that has a real plot to it and a coherent narrative and a reason for it. It's just like, oh man, like we can make you know uh chopping a dude's nuts off look realistic, and so let's put that in there. So, but okay, so there have been 10 installments all the way from Saw in 2004 to Saw X, and going
Crazy.
back to James Wan. He is the architect of this franchise, so he has a very uh, niche role in these horror genres, and
Hmm.
also this one is one of the only ones that spawned a amusement park ride.
Oh,
It,
really?
yeah, it's in Surrey, England.
Oh,
When I
okay. That's odd. I wonder what the connection is there.
yeah, it's because when I saw that at first, I thought it was like, well, it might be Universal Studios or something like that, or like a haunted house or something.
Yeah.
But yeah. So the original came out in 2000. What did I say? Four?
Four.
Yes,
Yep.
2004. And man, that the twist in this one blew my mind as a as still a youngish film goer, and
Mm,
never saw it coming. Danny Glover was the head of the cast, but just because he was the most well known name at the time,
yeah.
but really it was
Carrie Elways and the
yes.
and one of the writer, the guy who co-wrote it, I think, with James Wan, is the other lead actor. I can never remember his name, but he's been one of the producers and writers on all of them.
Yeah. So James Wan only directed the first one, but he definitely set off the franchise, and he's
Lee
produced.
Wan L.
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. But yeah, it's just funny seeing Carrie Ellis go from Princess Bride to Saw.
Yeah, where he's got, well, okay, won't give it away, but
But just two guys locked in a room and trying to figure out clues to get themselves out, and it's very. I always appreciated it, even when I wasn't like a I was always into film, but I wasn't like studying film per se.
mm,
And I always appreciated that it was so contained. It basically
mhm.
takes place in this one room with a few outliers,
Yeah,
like with Danny Glover trying to solve the mystery before the clock runs out.
yeah, and a
But
few flashbacks to Carrie Elways' life before this and stuff. Yeah,
yeah, when it turns out that the killer was in the room the entire time, it was just like
yeah, yeah.
that fucked me up. I was because I saw it with my dad and my best friend, and I was just yakking at the mouth for like 2 3 hours after that. I was like, can you believe that? So yeah, it really had an impact on me, and I haven't seen all the Saw installations, but the ones I have seen. They started to decline after 3 or 4 because it just kind of got a little repetitive.
Mm.
And but from what I understand, the last couple have kind of rejuvenated the franchise, but I don't know.
Okay. Yeah, see, I've only ever seen the original and one of the others. I can't even actually remember which one it is. I mean, there's 10 of them that kind of I don't know. Um, but you're right that the original was, especially for a horror movie, very kind of tightly crafted in terms of the plot and the story, which you definitely can't say about a lot of horror movies. And it's interesting enough. I mean, it's the worst case scenario escape room,
Oh
basically.
God, yeah.
But and it came out in 2004, and escape rooms are now everywhere. Like yeah, they're much bigger deal now. And I wonder if Saw had some sort of like perverse influence on that, where people thought that it might be kind of fun. Obviously, without the sawing off your leg part. Um, but yeah, these are obviously incredibly successful and interesting movies, and they're ones where the again, the villains really make any movie, but obviously make horror movies probably more than anything else. Um, and in this case, the villain is not just sort of a mindless killing machine like Jason or well, no,
Michael Myers.
or Mike Myers. Yeah, it's somebody who's really thought through what their plan is and has kind of a perspective on the world, right?
Hmm.
Almost similar to the movie Seven,
Yeah, good point.
where
Yeah.
the character has this perspective that things are wrong in the world, and this is his way of trying to make things right or trying to get people to see the light. So yeah, it kind of stands out that way in terms in from a lot of horror movies.
Yeah, that's a very interesting comparison between Saw and Seven because Jigsaw, the killer in Saw, obviously is really at the end of the day, he's trying to make people choose whether they want to live their lives or not. I
Yeah,
mean, it's in the most fucked up way imaginable, but it's people that are like wasting their lives away, and he's
yeah.
like, well, how bad do you really want to live? Are you willing to put your hand through this thing of like hypodermic needles and willing to lose your hand? Are you willing to kill somebody else to save your own life? And all these kind of
Or save your
like,
family, or yeah,
yeah,
yeah. Yeah, because he himself is has a terminal illness or
hmm,
something.
yeah,
Although, as I said, I haven't seen all these movies. I don't know how terminal his illness is, if he's in like 10 movies or something,
fair enough.
but if he's been going for 20 years now. But yeah, it's definitely because of that, he thinks that other people should appreciate the things they have more, and just makes it a much more compelling character.
Yep.
That brings us to 2013 and The Conjuring. This is another supernatural film directed by James Wan. So he's back. So obviously, he had created Saw. He had also created the Insidious franchise, which we mentioned we aren't going to talk about, but was a huge franchise for Blumhouse. But this one was actually written by twins Chad and Carrie Hayes. So James Wan didn't didn't write this one, even though he directed it and is a producer and everything. It is in part, I guess, inspired by real life paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren. Like the real people they did they were paranormal investigators. We'll just set that aside. Set aside my skepticism whether or not they actually did any of this stuff. Uh, and the original movie, it's essentially a haunted house story.
Hmm.
It's this is also New Line Cinema again, so they really became huge in the horror thing after being the house that Freddy built. But it's also distributed by Warner Brothers because by 2008 Warner Brothers had taken over New Line. It's the original movie of this in 2013 was incredibly successful. Again, it made about $319 million on a $20 million budget. And this one is kind of unique because it became not just a series, but actually a whole cinematic universe.
Hmm.
So there are four films in the main Conjuring series, There is an Annabelle series, and there are three movies in that series, and that's based on a possessed doll from the very first movie. And interestingly enough, they claim that they didn't actually intend to build a franchise around that doll originally, that it just kind of happened. Although going back and watching this first movie, it really seems like they were planting something with that. Like I'm sure they had it in the back of their minds because it's like the doll really doesn't play any part in the actual plot of the movie of the like the Conjuring movie. So it's clearly just there as like, oh, we'll come back to this at some point in the future. And well, damn did they. Because there were three of those, and then two films in the Nun series, which came out of this Conjuring Part Two, or the Conjuring Two, I guess. So there's really no other way to say it. This has been a monster fucking success,
Yeah.
this series. It is the most successful horror movie franchise of all time, and actually one of the most successful cinematic universes of all time, behind, the MCU. I saw something that said it was the second most, but it clearly isn't, because the Harry Potter, when you include the Fantastic Beasts, that's a cinematic universe, and that clearly made way more money. And so
Mm.
is James Bond, although James Bond might not be a cinematic universe, it might just be a series. But
Yeah.
anyway, it is definitely one of the most successful cinematic universes of all time, too. Its nine films have combined to gross over $2.7 billion on combined
Woo.
budgets of about 263 million. So 10 times return.
That's just
You're not
making
getting
it
that at the stock
rain.
market, right? Like
No.
with your bonds or whatever. It's just incredibly successful, this franchise. Now, having said that, I've mentioned before that I'm not a huge horror fan. And the reason why I'm not a big horror fan is because I kind of find a lot of them to be the same.
Mm,
And for me, this franchise is the epitome of that. Like the
okay.
haunted house, like the
Yeah.
something bad happened in the past and people come in, they got to find out what happened, and they got to, like, it's just to me, I mean, it's incredibly well made. I went back and watched the first one of this. It's a very well made series. Don't get me
Yeah.
wrong. James Wan knows what the hell he's doing. I just don't find them particularly interesting. Unlike something like Saw, right? Where it is more interesting, and there is more thought into the plot and stuff. Or some of the other movies that we're gonna one-off movies that we'll talk about next week, or something more entertaining like Final Destination or Evil
Mm,
Dead. To me, this is the kind of horror movie you see a lot more of these days, and they're incredibly successful, like the Insidious, the Paranormal Activities, all these kind of things. And none of these to me are all that interesting. But I know I'm an outlier there because these are incredibly successful movies.
yeah, I'd have to agree for the most part. I guess it all comes down to how willing you are to buy into the premise.
Fair enough. Yeah.
So whether you're, hardcore religious or just believe in the supernatural, I think that plays, well, I don't think, I know that plays a huge part into whether you're willing to just take these at face value or actually buy into that to the point where you're like
You think it could
emotionally,
happen around you?
yeah, if
Yeah.
you're like
Yeah.
emotionally jarred into thinking that, yeah, these things could actually happen to you. And yeah, it's very, the Conjuring in the entire series. I've only seen I've seen, I think, the first two, and then one of the nuns. I don't think I've seen any of the Annabelles. And apologies, but there's about, if we were to watch all of every single entry into all of these movies, that would be about 80 movies. So yeah, we didn't go
Yes.
back, we didn't go
Right.
back and watch every single installation of every one of these franchises.
Yeah. Definitely not.
But yeah, it's Conjuring is definitely along the lines of like Amityville Horror or The Exorcist,
Mhm.
and both really good horror movies in their own right, but just
Well, and apparently the Amityville horror was originally inspired by the stories of this couple that The Conjuring is kind of supposedly based on.
even
So
though
it's, there's a life imitating art imitating or art imitating life imitating art thing going on there. I don't know what's happening.
because both Amityville and The Exorcist also profess to be true stories.
Yes. Yeah.
So, I mean, when you put that ahead of a horror movie, a lot of people are just going to be like, "Oh my, wow!" They said it was a true story. So,
Hmm.
if Hollywood says it must be a true story, they've never lied to us. So
Although I will absolutely defend The Exorcist, which I probably will do next week. But
oh, as a movie, yeah,
yeah.
100%. But like, oh, just if anybody sees based on true
Right,
events,
right. Yeah,
they
yeah. Fair
they
enough.
don't
Yeah.
completely digest that that there's a lot of leeway that goes along with
Absolutely.
that.
Yeah. There's based on, there's inspired by, there's adjacent to a true story. I haven't seen that one. I got to start using that one on some story. This is adjacent to a true story.
Yeah, but yeah, kudos to him, man. Just printing money, and
Yeah.
the last one just came out, and uh,
Yeah. Is still in theaters right now and still making shit tons of cash.
yeah, it's still the same two lead actors too, and a lot of franchises well, actually, I think every one of these franchises has switched protagonists at one point or another. Like even a couple of the Halloweens didn't have Jamie Lee Curtis in them,
Yeah,
so.
that's right.
So that brings us to our most recent and probably the least known in the mainstream, but it came out in 2016, and that is Terrifier. But it has a massive cult following, and just to illustrate that, it has grossed as a whole. There's been three of them. One in 2016, one in 2022, one in 2023, and next one is in production, still being developed. But it's made $106 million off of basically the total. Okay, it's grossed a total of $106 million off a budget of about $23 million for all three movies. So again, horror movies, they make bank, they make it rain.
Yeah.
And this one is also critically acclaimed as well. And it's really a mix of body horror,
Yeah.
but camp as well. And I know you had never even heard about about Terrifier
No,
before,
but I went back and watched the first one. Yeah, the
and
like the burning out the eyeballs and stuff, the flames coming out. It's yeah, definitely there's a lot of body horror stuff going on.
so it follows a demonic entity called Art the Clown, which we really don't know how he originated because as you go through the series, he gets more and more supernatural. And
Oh,
I like that
okay.
there are no rules in this universe. Like he dies and comes back, which is a hallmark of most of these movies. But he gets like I'm not going to go into the entire thing because a lot of people don't know about this one, but it is one of the most violent movie series you could possibly imagine. It does get an NC-17 rating, which is very rare. Most of, if you want to make money, you have to cut back the violence, the
Yeah.
gore, and the sex, and try to make it rated R. You can still do a lot, but yeah, NC-17. It's really hard to make money with one of those films, but yeah, in this new day and age of alternative media and things where you don't have to go to theaters and you can just watch stuff on streaming. Damien Leone is the architect behind all of these. He writes, directs every single one of them, and yeah, Art the Clown is a one creepy motherfucker.
Yeah, the first one, it's interesting. Earlier on, I'm not sure how long we've been going here. We're probably over time, but we were talking a little bit about the how the higher budget ones can sometimes come across as a bit too slick. And the first one I didn't see the two sequels, but the first one that I watched of this, it does seem like it seems a bit like a lower budget film, but that just adds to the creepiness of it because it's so like gritty and grimy. Like it starts out with these two girls that are coming out of the bar and they're at this kind of like sketchy all night diner and the clowns there and you can just like you just feel kind of how dirty and everything it is, but that's in part because it's not too polished, right? It's
Hmm.
not too and that helps contribute to it that they're just there on the side of the road. They're waiting in their car for the one girl's sister to come along. It's definitely yeah, creepy and I can see how it's gained a cult following. Um even if yeah, I mean I thought it was interesting. I probably won't go and watch the sequels, but I can see how people would like this if this is their jam, right?
Yeah, yeah. I just think like it's built such a fan base up, and I think Art the Clown it just puts Pennywise to shame, especially the new one, just because he like his makeup styling and his outfit, like he has like one of these little tiny clown hats that just sits on the side of his head,
Yeah, yeah,
and,
yeah, very
and
tiny. Yeah,
it's
it's like a tiny top hat. Yeah, and he
because
does
it's a
tip sometimes.
yeah, because it seems very wholesome on its outset, and I guess that's why clowns are so creepy in general, just because they do project wholesomeness, but you never know
Yeah.
who's behind that makeup, and I guess it's
I saw one, it may have been on one of the posters for this movie or something, but there was some comment by a critic that said that Art the Clown makes Pennywise look like Krusty,
oh
which I
yeah,
thought
okay, yeah,
was a
that's a good
pretty good
point.
line.
Yeah, it is. Yep. So yeah, that's going to continue on, and yeah, like I said, the third sequel is in production, and while it doesn't have the name recognition as any of these other ones, it is on the rise, and I think by the time it's all said and done that everybody's going to know who the Terrifier, who Art the Clown is via the Terrifier, because you see more and more people dressing up like him for Halloween. You see
Mm.
like merchandise and like actually, when I went to go pick up this bottle of vodka at the liquor store, the cashier had a Art the Clown cup just at her desk.
No way.
So I was like,
Okay.
okay, yeah, okay. So
Very cool.
it wasn't that bad of a choice for us to cover this one at least.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's all 10. And are you scared?
I'm terrified.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, I don't really get scared from movies because real life's scary enough, and
Yeah.
some things will creep me out here and there. But other than that, that's kind of why I'm not huge into the horror
Same.
genre.
Like,
Just
yeah, maybe every once in a while a jump scare will get you to kind of whatever, but that's kind of cheap in my opinion.
oh yeah,
Like,
yeah,
like anybody can get can do a jump scare, but yeah, for you to be really terrified, we'll get into some of the movies next week where we think they're some of the best standalone horror movies, where they actually did a good job of really kind of creeping us out.
yeah, yeah, 100%. Really looking forward to that one. But we wanted to give you enough time. We're recording this on October 23rd, so we're going to give you about a week to dive into some of these franchises and
Yeah,
entertain yourself and your family for the rest of the Halloween season and, enjoy it.
exactly. Me and my two buddies here. We'll be we'll be
Yeah,
watching lots of horror movies between now and Halloween.
yeah, I got a little mummy here. Not quite as high tech, but yeah. So yeah, we'll see you next week on Unsolicited Film Reviews podcast. I'm Zach Miller. He's Martin Cooke, and take care and try not to get killed.
Bye, everyone.